Welcome to the Fallen State. I'm Jesse Lee Peterson. Thank you so much for being with me. We're talking about the transgender issue today. I have with me Liz SKOCHIL. She called us up, really liked the show, and would like to discuss the issue. So thank you for coming all the way from Minnesota.
Thank you.
How did you hear about the Fallen State?
Came up on my sidebar on YouTube, actually, and I think it was the Black Lives Matter one. You said something along the lines of racism doesn't exist. You're angry at the person, not their race. And that was a very profound moment where I thought, well, that's a very interesting idea. I hadn't considered that before.
Yeah.
So, and then there was another one too, where I think you said something like, when you become angry and resentful, you become the very thing that you despise the most.
Well, I appreciate that. You have transitioned
Yes.
from man to woman.
Yes.
So you're born boy, and
Yes.
now you're girl.
Yes.
And you had the complete surgery.
Yes, that's right.
And so when you're walking down the road, do guys see you as a girl? They talk to you, and they see you as a woman, young woman. And do you tell them, no, I'm a transgender? Or
no, I don't really wear it on my sleeve.
Right.
I mean, I guess for me, it's just one small part about who I am as an individual. I'm more than the sum of my parts.
Right.
So, you know, unless I want to have a more intimate relationship with that person, I'm not going to disclose it.
Were you raised by your father and mother?
Yes.
And what did they say when you decided that you were going to have the surgery? Hey, Dad, hey, Mom, I'm going to become your daughter, no longer son.
That's not really how it happened. I think for me it was a thing for many years that was always there and it was always weighing down on me, and it came down to ultimately a decision between life and death, where I can choose to embrace this part of who I am, or I can end my life. And ultimately I think that's the path that would have happened. So undergoing this process was a means to continue living. And so when I approached my family about this and I came out to them, I said, look, I have this issue and I don't have an end goal in mind, but I want you to know that this is what it is, and I want to seek treatment and help for it. So my mother was very supportive immediately, and my father, it took him a little bit of time, but he's still like my greatest advocate. My brother chose not to speak to me for about 6 or so years.
Why do you think mothers tend to accept these type of things easier and quicker than fathers?
I honestly don't know. I think, I don't rightly know. I don't really have an answer for that. I mean, it could be something just maternal instinct. I have no idea.
You're now 30 years old. In reading your background, your bio, it was very, very interesting, by the way. You say at age 5, you started to realize you didn't feel like a boy.
Right.
But didn't have the words for it.
Right.
What does a boy feel like?
Well, that's hard to say. I think there's definitely a separation between men and women. So there's kind of a masculine tribe and a feminine tribe, or there's social cues, non-social cues. There's behavior that you're supposed to do, and there's behaviors you're not supposed to do. So for me, well, transsexuality is a combination of mental issues as well as biology. So when I was 5, I was trying to acclimate myself to being a boy, to being masculine, and it didn't fit for me. Like, I just didn't have the same nuances, I guess. I don't really know how to describe it other than just I didn't belong, and I knew I didn't belong.
Were you looking for a boy feeling? Were you trying to make yourself feel like a boy?
I'm not sure. I think it was more about, you know, I'm not rough and tumble. I want to sit quietly and look and read or do something else. And again, on the surface, that's very innocuous, right? That's not, anybody can do that.
Right.
But it was more just a lack of feeling like I belonged to part of a tribe.
Did you feel like a girl at age 5?
No, because I didn't really know the differences between the genders at that point.
Oh, I see.
So
if you didn't feel like a girl and you didn't feel like a boy, what were you trying to put the words to?
I was physically masculine, but at the same time, my brain didn't go in the same processes. I didn't have the same sort of emotional level that boys had, or the same things that they're interested in, the same things that the ways they think and the same ways they operate. So for me, it felt like I was an outsider. And again, it sounds so shallow, right? It sounds very like, well, anybody can do that. But for me, it was on a deeper spiritual level, I guess you could almost say.
At age 5, were you closer to your father or mother?
I'd say equally both.
About the same with both? Mm-hmm. So at age 12 or 13, you had the words for the way that things were. And what were the words and where did you get them from?
One of the moments that I kind of had an aha was like I was watching Ally McBeal or something like that, and they had a case where it was a transvestite, I think, and that kind of, that's, okay, so transvestite is different from transgender, which is...
But what I'm a little confused about, if you didn't feel like a girl,
right,
and you didn't feel like a boy, why did you think that was a problem? Because most of the time, when we have issues in life, it's based on what we think and feel. And if you don't have those thoughts or feelings, you don't tend to think that there is an issue or a problem in your life.
Right. Well, I guess as I grew up, I just as I got older up until before puberty hit, that's when I kind of just, okay, I can live with this, I can make this work. If I'm just a little bit different, that's fine. But then it was really puberty, which was the galvanizing moment for me.
Have you ever had sex with a girl?
Yes.
You've had sex, and why?
Well, I've had numerous partners. I wouldn't say extraordinary numbers of partners,
right.
But...
At what age did you have sex with girls?
Maybe 19 or 20.
And so since you knew that you were not a boy in your mind, why did you have sex with girls?
I think part of it was to try to see if I can get this out of me, to like get it. It sounds silly, but it's maybe if I have sex, it'll make things right, in your mind that you think you can try to fix yourself.
Right.
And you see this elsewhere with people that will self-medicate, or in the military, for instance, some people will go in there to say, you know what, I'm going to be super masculine, and I'm just going to be, gung-ho, and that's going to fix the problem. And it doesn't fix the problem.
And so when you had sex with girls, did you think, wow, that was so good?
It was nice, sure. It just felt really awkward. I guess it didn't really... I don't know if this goes into TMI, but,
Did it feel like two women having sex, or did you feel like a boy having sex with a girl?
Well, see, that's the thing, because I've not been born as a female, so I don't really know what females I can only present to you a reproduction, I guess, in a way, and that's where, I physically look female, but technically or mechanically speaking, I'm not.
So have you had sex with a boy?
Yes.
And which is better to you, boy or girl?
Well, that's kind of a personal question. Honestly, I'm a fairly non-sexual person, and I don't have a whole lot of sex, so
Let me ask this one, which feel more natural? Having it with a boy or having it with a girl?
I'm not sure. That's kind of a personal question.
You're not sure. So you began this transitioning from male to female at age 21. So what made you decide that day, I'm going out and I'm going to do this thing?
There is a series of treatments that there's like an internationally recognized series of treatments. So before you even get into any of that, you have to see a psychologist, which that's something that I advocate is if you believe you're transgender, transsexual, see a therapist. Don't start a blog, don't get interviewed by a newspaper, talk to a professional.
And why do you recommend that?
Because I think for me, the decision was a decision between life and death. For me, it was correcting a medical issue. For me, it was, I would not wish gender identity disorder or gender dysphoria or whatever term you want to use it, wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy.
And why is that?
Because the torment that it causes you is something that is maddening, that is spiritually deadening, and it rots your core out.
What causes the torment?
I'm not a psychologist.
But what were you feeling or thinking that brought on the torment?
Well, I think for me it was a combination of biology and a combination of whatever neurons aren't firing correctly. So biologically speaking, I'm not a doctor, but I do know there are cases of women who are allergic to estrogen, so it causes all these problems. I don't know if that's what the case was. There's studies that say as soon as you start taking hormones, your brain chemistry changes. So you start. The argument that was presented was, oh well, you're just born with the wrong mind. But now there's evidence that that's not the case. I don't know.
Right.
I don't really know what caused it, but I can tell you that I couldn't fit in. I couldn't feel. My body was in turmoil chemically, and I could not get rid of it. It's like it's like living in a toxic waste dump. You can't get out of it. You're trapped in your own skin.
Wow.
So.
So at age 21, you started the treatment.
That's when I
after for the surgery.
Right. About 18 months or so, I think, of seeing a therapist. I got a recommendation from that therapist and kind of a second one from a second opinion, say, here's the battery of tests that I took, here's the psychological exams. No, I was not molested as a kid, or I didn't have I wasn't doing it for attention or any of the potential other causes that it might happen. And so that's when I started on the hormone therapy. And for me, I didn't try passing until I was maybe 6 to 8 months in, and then I just switched the clothing, and then it just did. I was fine.
And this was age 27 when you had the surgery?
Yes. About in a couple of days, it'll actually be my 3-year anniversary.
And so how are you feeling today? What is your mental state, emotional state? What is like walking around and being a part of the world, amongst people and being there as a woman?
I can say mentally, and anybody can verify this who knows me, I'm much more happy, I'm much more stable, I'm much more at peace. And that's definitely something spiritually as well. And it's something that whatever caused this, I feel like it's been fixed. So life is now worth living. There's the potential to do amazing things out in the world now. And I don't feel as though I would have had that potential if I had stayed where I was.
Do you have perfect peace within?
Yes.
Perfect peace. And what does perfect peace feel like?
Perfect peace for me has allowed me to transcend my own ego, I guess you could say. I mean, when you're constantly fighting, you're constantly trying to say, I'm stronger than this, I can do this, whatever, I can get through this. But once that's out of there, you can actually say, you know what, I am more of a spiritual being. I am greater than the sum of my parts. I'm not just a ball of diseased flesh. I'm a spiritual creature.
Do you hope to be married and have a family and all that?
Well, kids I biologically can't have. Marriage, potentially, I haven't ruled it out, but for me, it's more of I want to live a life of excellence. I want to do things. So I want to start businesses. I want to write a book. I want to travel the world a little bit.
But you don't necessarily want a husband?
I don't know. I mean, if I meet the right person, maybe, and certainly I would divulge this is my background
Right.
and this is my history, so if you're okay with that.
Prior to starting the treatment, I believe I read that you had suicidal thoughts.
Yes.
And you wanted to take your own life.
Right.
And what brought that on?
50%, so 50, of all transsexuals end their lives, I think was the statistic, and it's usually typically by suicide.
Right.
And so for me, it was, I can't get out of this. Like I'm stuck in, what do I have to look forward to for the rest of my life? A life where I feel like I'm trapped in this rotting body or this horrible situation that I can't feel I can truly express myself. The fact that if I do end up with a partner, I would essentially be lying to them and lying to my community and lying to God.
Do you think God made you that way? Made you boy, or made you look like a boy, or body parts of a boy, but he meant for you to be a girl?
I think that's a tough question, because I think if God made me as a transsexual, that was a pretty harsh thing to do. If I was born evil and wicked and what have you, and that the only way to get through that was to just bear through it and grit your teeth and stiff upper lip and whatnot, I wouldn't have made it. But I do think if I was created this way, and I was meant to go through the surgery and to be a positive example for that, for what things should be, then I guess, then fine. But I don't, that's one of those things that I'm spiritually reconciling as well, because again, I wouldn't wish transsexuality as gender dysphoria on anybody.
So meaning that you're not sure if God made you that way or not?
I don't know.
You don't know if God
I don't
did
have
it.
all the answers.
Yeah. And speaking of God, you were a Christian at one point, right?
My dad converted from Christianity, and I'm not sure what it was when I was 9. So we converted to Judaism, and I didn't really identify with it for most of my life. My brother very much did, and I was an atheist for a number of years, primarily because I think I was angry.
Right.
But for the past maybe 18 months or so, I've started, attending synagogue with my father. And
So how did your father, I don't know if you can answer this for your father, how did he go from Christian, believing in Jesus, to Jewish and not believing in Jesus?
that would be a question for him, I guess.
Have you ever wondered that?
That was back maybe in 1992 or 93. So he was following, he knew a rabbi that kind of introduced us to the religion, and he wanted to convert when we relocated to Minnesota from Wisconsin, and so we all just sort of went through with it, and that was the way it was, and until I came out. And then I think my mother once told me, she said, I feel like I want to become Christian because you came out, because you had the strength to do that. I want to have the strength to pursue my faith as well. So she converted back to Methodism.
So when you go to the synagogue with your father, you go sometimes, right?
Yes, yes.
And he's not embarrassed or anything to have you there?
No, the community is very accepting of me, and I've led the way for a few others as well.
Do you believe people looking at you and judging you?
Honestly, if they are, I can't really change that.
Right. It doesn't bother you?
I don't know. I mean, I have to live my life through happiness anyway. So, I cannot change what people think of me. I can only change how I react.
Your older brother is a religious Jew.
Yes.
Or Jewish.
Well,
And he thought that he could pray away your transgender.
It's more, I think he wanted me to see a Jewish therapist, that it was one that would focus more on spirituality and one that would do that. And that was, I think, his initial opinion.
Are you comfortable going into women's bathrooms when you're out traveling about? And
Well, yes. I'm not there to do anything nefarious. I'm there to use the restroom. I just do my own thing. I'm not, and this is kind of I'm just, judge me on who I am, not what I am.
But suppose that you walk into a bathroom and you see a fine woman up in there, and a boy look, oh my gosh, she's so fine, and everything else follow. Are you afraid that could happen to you?
Afraid? I don't really understand. Afraid that I could be attracted to somebody?
Right.
Not any more so than I would be if I was walking down the street.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
I don't seek out bathrooms to pick up dates, I guess, so.
Do you think transgender people should be allowed to go into any bathroom according to how they feel?
If there's somebody who clearly doesn't belong there, you can generally tell. I mean, I don't know, it seems
Well, how about
like.
for a guy who just feel like a woman but hasn't gone through the
The transitional stuff?
transitional
I would
stuff,
say that
where
that's.
he feel like a woman, has a dress on and a wig or whatever. Should he be allowed to go into the women's bathroom?
I'm not the final arbiter here, but I would be wary of that in the absolute extreme.
How about the ladies who feel like men? They dress like men but not gone through the surgery. Should they be allowed to go into the men's bathroom?
Well, you're speaking in general terms. I think,
Because
again,
it's
it's more
becoming
of
an
a.
issue right now in the country.
No, I understand.
Should the country allow that to happen?
I think that the issue with the transgender bathroom issues is not a national choice. I think it should be up to the states and it should be up to local municipalities.
Do you think the states should pass laws that says, yes, a transgender person can go into whatever bathroom or shower that they feel like going into?
I know I might catch flack for this, but I think it's a bad idea. For me as a trans person, before I had surgery, I had the right to I could go to, a swimming area and I could disrobe in front of other people, but some people might take offense and objection to that. If you also consider the fact that the number of transsexuals out there is statistically insignificant.
So it's all as though you believe it's best to just make build bathrooms that says transgender people. Right?
I would say keep it the way it is. If there is a situation where somebody feels uncomfortable and I be assertive and say, you know what, please don't take this the wrong way, but could you please leave? And I mean, if I was a trans person, yes, I would be offended. But I would also say, okay, I don't want to start anything because I don't want to get hurt here. So I'll find somewhere else to
How about the military?
relieve myself.
The military, Barack Obama has, is set up now where you can be openly homosexual in the military. You can now be an open transgender person in the military. Do you agree with that?
I think this is where you're judging somebody's identity and not what they're doing. There are probably some people that are very, very good. And I would think that the majority of them would be because the United States military has standards. But then again, I do know that there are individuals like Chelsea Manning who clearly has other issues that are going on, and I'm not sure that the military is an appropriate place for, Chelsea's mental state.
And so I'm not clear. Are you saying yes, they should? The rule is you can do it, but it should only apply to certain transgender people?
I think yes, they should, to answer your question, yes. I believe that they should be allowed to go in, but with a caveat, just because you're special doesn't mean you're useful. I would think that pre-op transsexual people would be very expensive for the United States military. You have a battery of psychological evaluations as well as medical treatment. Then you have surgeries involved in addition to training them in whatever skill they're going to be doing. So like a fighter pilot is millions of dollars worth of training. And if you have this additional cost on top of signing that person on, it's not financially viable to do that if you have another counterpart that you can go into. So I would think that post-op would be more attractive to hire. The military is not a jobs program. It's designed to protect our freedom in our society.
What do you say to a person like me who I am convinced that transgender people should not be allowed to go to the military, and also open homosexuality should not be allowed in the military because the people who are into that are weak people. They're weak emotionally and mentally, and it affects the straight people.
Well, I think I don't have to agree with what you say. I mean, we certainly have differing opinions, and I don't agree with everything that you talk about. But you know what? We're still Americans. We're still citizens of the United States, and we can agree to disagree.
Who are you voting for in the presidential race?
I'm keeping that close to my chest.
You are? Why?
Yes. Well, I just don't want to. It's a personal issue.
But in Minnesota, you have a lot of ISIS people living there. You know that, right?
There has been issues with in the past with some of the areas. Yes.
Yeah. Does that concern you?
Yes.
Who do you think best qualified to deal with the ISIS issue, Hillary or Trump?
I would say Trump.
Trump. Who do you think would make a better president at this time, Hillary or Trump?
I would say Trump.
Oh, well, I rest my case then. You believe there's a devil?
I don't think so.
Why have you chosen to believe there is a God but not a devil?
I think that if you give an excuse to a spiritual entity for your own wickedness, it's very easy to say, well, that other person did it, or this entity made me do it, instead of taking responsibility for the things you yourself have done. In the Jewish faith, I don't believe there is a devil with it, but then again, I'm still new with this. So.
Do you believe there is a Jesus?
As
that
a
Jesus
person,
Christ existed?
A person or the Messiah, Jesus?
The Messiah.
I don't believe so, no.
Do you believe in sin? That we can and are sinners?
I think that negative actions certainly have spiritual consequences on yourself. But as far as if God is a laundry list of different things, yes, this is right, no, this is wrong, I don't know if there's an absolute in that or not.
Are these things that you are seeking to understand better, or you just leave it as, I don't know?
I'm trying and doing the best I can with what I've got. I think ultimately that's what most people try to do.
Right. Is there anything you disagree with me about that you need to ask me now that you have me right here in front of you?
Well, I personally don't believe I'm evil. I personally don't believe that gays are evil.
You don't?
I think it's more of something that we're hardwired as a series of biology, but what we do with those actions can be evil, just as a heterosexual's actions can be evil.
So are you disagreeing with me because I say that they are evil?
By default, if a person is gay, does that make them evil?
Well, it's not the person, but it's this sin, the spirit that's made a home inside of them. And there are homosexuals who are locked in that lifestyle but know that there is something wrong with it. They just don't know how to overcome it. Mm-hmm. But then there are those who have accepted it and they're very radical and they're trying to impose it on others. That's evil. Those are the ones
I
that
would
are
agree
evil.
with anybody trying to enforce radical ideals on anybody else.
And so you agree that those homosexuals who are doing this are evil?
I guess yes, but at the same time, I'm also kind of concerned with the consequences of saying that.
Like what, for example?
Oh, just where I don't want to have this hammer of, negativity or people trying to mess with my life with it. I just don't want to start conflicts.
But that's a weak way of living. You don't want to live a life
That's very true.
believing what you believe to be true, but don't have the courage to stand up for that truth.
That's true.
You're not going to be happy like that.
No, I agree with you.
And so
but I also have a career that I want to do, so.
And so you're afraid of losing your career?
Well, I guess you could say yeah.
Oh, okay. And so does the career mean more than the truth?
No.
And so why are you selling out the truth for the career?
Oh, you got me there, Jesse.
And I'm not telling you to go out because you have to be ready. It is rough. There are haters out there that would try everything they can do to destroy you. And I realize that a lot of people don't have the courage to stand up for what they believe. And the only way that I'm able to do it is because God is guiding me in doing it. It's not of myself at all. I would not do what I do on my own. I would have the same concerns that you have. Mm-hmm. Career concerns, being attacked, called names, and being murdered or something.
Right.
But so it has to be guided by God in order to do that. I'm not telling you to jump out and do it.
No, you've given me a lot of interesting points to consider.
What made you decide to want to be a guest on the show?
I would like to present, and judge it however you may, and clearly we don't agree on everything.
Right.
I would say that there should be a voice saying, you know what, this is not every trans person is like this. Not every, the GLBT movement it's not hegemonic. There are voices of differing opinions, and unfortunately, as history has also shown, the most horrible punishments and acts of censure have been against the heathens and the heretics who disagree.
And so you wanted to bring another point of view from a transgender person.
That's right.
Coming all the way from Minnesota.
Yes.
Did you have fun?
Yes.
Good.
I came into your life like a ghost. Never left a trace. Never left a trace. Gray skies. Getting ready for the rain. Next time on The Fallen State.
When you say I wanted to feel close to God, what were you looking for?
I guess I just really wanted to believe it. I just wanted to feel like I wasn't tricking myself. And it seemed like such a nice idea. I get it. There is a comfort that comes from feeling like there's somebody watching you, taking care of you, looking after you, that there is some afterlife that you can look forward to, and that's the thing I didn't want to let go of.